Hello, everybody. I'm back with another film review for you. And today I'm going to be taking a look at The Holdovers, directed by Alexander Payne and written by David Hemmingson. And it stars Paul Giamatti, Dominic Sessa, and Divine Joy Randolph. I think it's Divine, unless it's Devine. Either way, wonderful actress. These are all wonderful performances here, especially from these three leads. No spoilers yet. I will talk about the film very briefly, but I promise I won't reveal too much. And then I'll score it, and then I will talk about the ending and what I thought about it, and spoil that a little bit. Okay, well, a lot, right? So, yeah. So I'll put up the spoiler warning when the time comes. Don't worry. All right. So I personally love movies that are set in the 1970s, and this one really does feel like the way I imagine the 70s were. And it's a drama, but it's a bit silly at times too, and you just can't help but laugh. And when those laughs come out, yeah, you're gonna be thinking, wow, this is so much more than the typical drama because of the way that it's done. Now, Paul Giamatti's performance here, I mean, it deserves some recognition, I think, as he's as good as ever, playing the typical Grinch. He's a curmudgeon. The curmudgeon word's been thrown around a lot to describe his performance. Just means he's never happy. Just seems like nothing will please him, and he's hanging on to past hate. Past problem. He plays him to perfection here, and yeah, so he plays this character, teacher named Paul Hunnam, and he's at this boarding school. It's called Barton School, and it's in New England in the year 1970. Now, the students there, they don't like him very much. He's a bit of a grouch, and he hilariously insults his students. Angus, one of his students, finds out that his mom and her new kind of a jerk husband are going on a honeymoon, leaving him at school, on the campus there, with the other few holdovers there, including the teacher, Hunnam, and, that obviously hence the name of the film, The Holdovers. It's a pretty crummy thing to do to your son over the holidays. This was December, so it's like, oh my goodness, like, yeah. Well, some intense moments happen together between Angus and Hunnam as they start to bond over the course of the film with each other. The school's cafeteria manager, Mary, is, well, she's really sharp. She's sharp as a tack, and she's going through her own pain as well. But she has some delightful moments in this dramedy. So the audience laughed when they were supposed to laugh, and they were quiet when the more serious subject matter was brought up. Randolph's character, Mary Lamb's grieving mother, she's a bit of a bummer, at times, but certainly she's a voice of reason as well. It's a very memorable performance here, and much like Sideways, the previous Payne and Giamatti collaboration, it's really, really well performed. It's really, really well done. Not everyone's going to be that big on the story, I don't think, but it is really, really well done. And honestly, it's more like It's a Wonderful Life in a way. I've heard some comparisons to that Christmas classic, so it's a great holiday film, just almost accidentally, kind of just because the portion of it, the later half of the film is set there. So it's the same with this film, though. This film feels almost like a Christmas movie, and it may be considered a Christmas movie in the future, or a holiday movie, or whatever you want to call it. It's just without the angels and the alternate reality stuff, and Jimmy Stewart going, well, why not matter? It's you got Paul Giamatti instead. Wishing that things were different, in the past, and he's still kind of bitter about some things. He plays this great character who goes through this wonderful arc, as does the Angus character as well, too. And so that's really the reward here, is that the performances are so good, and the characters, they do change in a good way, and we're happy to see that. So I think that this film deserves to be a modest hit, quite frankly, because it's really the kind of dramedy that should get an audience, that should find its audience, but in any case, Giamatti deserves the trophy, or at least a nomination of some kind here from some award show, whatever trinket, just some recognition, I think, for Giamatti. Is what I'm hoping for and predicting, because this film was very good, and the acting and directing, the cinematography as well, were really the strengths of the film. The music was really good, very appropriate for the time as well. So, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. All right, on to the spoilers now, and I think you've been warned. I think that's enough time. All right, so there's a scene in this movie where Angus tries to book a room at a hotel, and Hunnam catches him trying to book this room, and and he chases him throughout the school, and it turns out to be a very kind of funny scene, until the end, anyway. Um, there is some unfortunate but expected hatred here and there towards Asians in this film, unfortunately, because of the time, I guess, and because of the Vietnam War, where Mary's son was killed. And, that's why Mary's grieving all the time, and she's crying and she's breaking down, is because, her son was killed in Nam. So, yeah, and it's all kind of sign of the time stuff, and that's still kind of like, okay, yeah, I mean, it's early 70s, okay, but we do get enough of it, I think. And when Angus and Hunnam, they reveal their troubled pasts to each other. Angus says his father is dead, but he was actually lying about that. He had him committed instead. But Hunnam tells Angus about how he was kicked out of Harvard as well, and that whole story of being framed and things like that, and it's very sad. So they do bond over their problems, despite the two are very different. They're from very different worlds, very different generations. Angus's father's story at the very end of the movie here it's quite tragic, as they do go to see him. I should definitely mention this, that they do go to see his father in Boston, so he calls it a field trip, and he says, okay, let's go, and things are kind of very sad the way they go, let's just put it that way. Angus is worried that he's going to wind up just like his father, and Hunnam winds up getting fired from the Barton School for the illegal field trip to Boston. But Angus is allowed to stay, so he's allowed to stay a student there. Hunnam, it seems like he's going to be okay, though. He seems like he's ready to move on by the very, very end of the film. So it is a very powerful human drama with some light moments of comedy, and it's very well done, very masterfully shot by Mr. Payne, and it's I'm very, very thankful that there are little moments of comedy here and there, because it is kind of a dour film at times. You really don't like these characters at first, and they do have to kind of grow on you, and they go through their changes, like I said, and that works out well. And I gotta say, I mean, certainly the performances and the direction, the editing, the cinematography, that's the reason to go. It's a mosty new cast. I only really recognized one other actor in the movie besides Giamatti, and that's Tate Donovan as Angus's stepfather. And nice to see him in a movie like this. And I thought the story was fine. I just thought the story itself was just okay. As I reflected on it afterwards, I went, the story was just okay. I mean, it was great. It's really the performances that really, made it come alive. And that was what it was all about. It was really more about the execution of the story, that made the Holdovers shine. So, again, I am going to give it an 8 out of 10. And I thank you very much for tuning in to this quick review of The Holdovers. I hope you all get to see it. It's been out for a couple of weeks now, so get out there and see it. And until next time, this is Neil. Peace.